Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and this is the Reading Books About Reading Books tag. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, a little tag for you today on Tag Tuesday. This is the Reading Books About Reading Books tag, and this was originally created by Robert G, Reader of Books, and I was tagged by Pat from Book Chat with Pat. So thank you very much for that tag, Pat, and I will link to Pat and Robert's channels and videos in the description as always. So let's dive straight into the prompts then. So prompt number 1, what do you enjoy the most about reading? I think in terms of the kind of the physical experience of it, that kind of thing, I think I just enjoy the coziness, the kind of the curl up with a bookness, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's especially in the winter, that's particularly nice, but at any time it is just that chance to properly just, it's me time, it's me with the blanket on the sofa and a bit of chocolate, things like that. Headphones on, shut the world out, read. I think in terms of sort of wider, enjoyment, I love the rabbit holing that comes from reading. It broadens my world because whatever I read, there is likely to be something in it that will lead me to something else. I am perpetually on the search for new things to learn, new things to experience, find out about, that kind of thing. So, whether it's a book that then leads me to a whole load of other books by the author or books by different authors or things within the books that I want to learn more about. I spoke recently about reading Adrian Tchaikovsky. His science fiction particularly has made me want to go off and learn more about the actual kind of science of evolution and natural history and things like that. And so I bought books recently that will hopefully expand my knowledge on that. And I love that fact, that spider web, that rabbit holing, that just broadens my world and broadens my knowledge. That is, I think one of the things I enjoy the most about reading. Okay, prompt number 2 is, what is the greatest benefit you get from reading? I think connection, both in terms of understanding, connecting with the world at large, but mostly with other people. And I think this is quite a BookTube specific thing, in terms of, my reading these days really does help me connect with others on this little community, this fabulous little community. That's something that has been a massive benefit to me. As someone who does find it difficult to kind of go out into the world and make friends, don't have a lot of, kind of friends that I see regularly. And I certainly don't kind of go to a lot of different sort of social things. I'm not a social butterfly, far from it. So I have quite a lot of social anxiety. So reading and then being able to connect with people through that's a huge benefit for me. For my confidence, mental health, etc. And mental health, I think, generally is like the biggest benefit that I get from reading. Not just in terms of the connections, but also in terms of reading is one of the few things that really calms and focuses my mind. I have a really quite chaotic and overly busy mind. There is always a lot of stuff swirling in my mind, and it can get a little bit discombobulating. And film and TV, watching film, TV, things like that, doesn't get rid of that swirling. It's too passive an activity. If I sit down and watch a film or TV, my mind will wander and I'll end up back in that swirl. Whereas with reading, I have to, it's an active activity. I have to interpret what's on the page or is coming in through my ears, and make meaning of it and build the pictures myself in my head, all that kind of stuff. And that completely just focuses my mind on something and stops all of that swirling about. that yeah, it's one of the, as I say, the few activities that really does that for me. And then it also leaves me with a lot of stuff to kind of ponder on afterwards, which again stops the kind of the swirling thoughts really. So yeah, mental health wise, calming my busy brain down, that kind of thing. That's definitely the biggest benefit I get from reading. Okay, prompt number 3 then. Is there any other activity which gives you satisfaction similar to reading? Um, I think video gaming, that focuses my mind as well because again, it's active, I have to concentrate on what I'm doing, and I do get very involved in the sort of worlds that I'm playing games in. I like big open worlds and narrative based games. So again, it's kind of there's a story element to it. I have to concentrate, and it's often stuff that sticks with me when I shut the game down and I can still think about and kind of almost play in my head, that kind of thing. Um, Hiking, I think, is the other one. Spending time in the outdoors, nature, that is extremely calming. That stops the swirl. I get a huge amount of joy from it. I get that kind of it broadens my world again. I find a lot of stuff I want to learn more about. It also connects me with other people. So yeah, hiking, spending time outdoors is probably, it's not quite as significant in that respect as reading is, but it's you know, it's up there. But I just can't do it as often as reading. It's, you know, it's a little bit more difficult to fit that in. So yeah, reading is definitely the most prominent kind of thing in my life that gives that kind of satisfaction. Okay, prompt number 4. Do you have a dedicated time each day or specific days of the week set aside for reading? I don't have a really strict schedule for reading or anything like that, but generally, like, I read every day. At least most days. I might take one day off a week where I just don't fancy reading, so I don't read. And it's always like on a weekday, it's always after tea. So my wife and I will have tea around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening, and then after that, and I always cook. So once we've eaten and just had a chat after tea, she'll go off and do the washing up, and I'll stick my audiobook on, or I'll stick headphones with a bit of kind of chilled music on and have actually read a book. So yeah, that is the time that I read. Occasionally, at the weekend, I will read in the afternoon, for instance. So especially if my wife and I have said we'll watch a movie in the evening, then my reading time will get put into the afternoon instead. But pretty much every day, I like to read. Prompt number 5, do you have a dedicated amount of time each day for reading? Again, not really like a real dedicated amount of time, just whatever I can fit in the evening. It's at least 2 hours a day, if I sit down to read, it will be at least a 2 hour session, probably more. If it's something where I'm really into the book, I am terrible for doing that. One more chapter, just a bit more. And then all of a sudden it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm still reading or listening and I've started at like 8:30. So, it's like I can go on for quite a long time, especially with an audiobook. But generally, as I say, like 2 hours tends to be kind of the minimum that I just, end up reading. It's not like I go, right, 2 hours, that's my slot, start the timer, and then stop at 2 hours. It's just, that's how it works out. Okay, prompt number 6. What's your favourite essay or book about the joys of reading? I don't have a favourite essay. Non-fiction, I don't think I've read anything about reading. The one that comes to mind in terms of fiction is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, which is kind of a prequel to Legends and Lattes. And as it says in the title, it's about bookshops, or at least a bookshop. And there is a lot in there which is about the loveliness of reading, of discovering reading, the joy of discovering reading, and the joy of being able to give someone the joy of reading as well. Handing someone a book and then seeing their reaction when they put it down, things like that. There is some lovely bits in that. I didn't like that one quite as much as I loved Legends and Lattes, which is still a favourite, absolute favourite of mine. But I still really, really enjoyed it. It's still a fantastic book. But yeah, some of the stuff in there about the joys of reading is lovely. Okay, prompt number 7 then is, what's your favourite quote about the joy of reading? I had to think about this quite a bit. There was one that I remembered, kind of, not the exact words, and I had to go and search for it and find out who it was by, but I found it, and it's B.F. Skinner, who I have read a bit of before, an American psychologist, social philosopher. And the quote is, "We shouldn't teach great books. We should teach a love of reading. Knowing the contents of a few works of literature is a trivial achievement. Being inclined to go on reading is a great achievement." And then one that I had come across relatively recently after I read The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, I went off and read some stuff about Le Guin. And this is one that cropped up. "As you read a book, word by word and page by page, you participate in its creation, just as a cellist playing a Bach suite participates, note by note, in the creation, the coming to be, the existence of the music. And as you read and reread, the book, of course, participates in the creation of you, your thoughts and feelings, the size and temper of your soul." Le Guin has a lot of great stuff about reading and writing and literature in general. I think like the introduction to The Left Hand of Darkness is fantastic. And if you haven't read that, then I would recommend going and Googling Introduction to Left Hand of Darkness. It's online, just on its own. It's essentially a little essay, and it's brilliant. But yeah, Le Guin's got some really excellent stuff to say on writing, reading, literature in general. Okay, prompt number 8 then. If you were denied time to read, or if your access to books was denied you, how would you cope? I'd cope reasonably well in terms of I'd be determined to keep reading no matter what. I'd be up for a fight, put it like that. I think if it was to do with time, that I didn't have time to read, I think I'd sacrifice other things to read, even if that was sleep that I sacrificed. Reading is that, it's important. It's really important to me. If it was an access issue due to something health related, for instance, like losing my sight, then for me, I'd be fortunate in the fact that I love audiobooks. And in that respect, I think losing my hearing with regards to reading or accessing books, losing my hearing would be worse for me, because I really do favour audiobooks these days. But I would approach things like that in a positive way, in terms of, okay, that particular way of accessing books is not available to me. What else can I do? Whether that meant, learning Braille to be able to read books, things like that. I would immediately go into that kind of, right, what do I need to do? How do I do this? If we're talking prohibition in terms of denying access to books, then I would absolutely fight that. I think, that there would be a part of me would love to think that I would be part of some sort of underground clandestine reading revolt. Setting up a new wave of like speakeasies or like read-easies, like masquerading as like tea shops or something, knitting shops. Work for a smuggling outfit, something like that, getting books in, and spread around, distributing them around the country. I just think like no one, not even like the mighty power of like the state machinery, is going to stop me from trying to access books. It's just too much of it's too important a thing. So I would absolutely be up for a fight. My anger levels would be, my rage levels would be so high at the audacity of anyone trying to stop me read, that's the sort of thing that would kick me into action. So yeah, it's fighting talk. And that is the last prompt, other than to tag some other folks. I realise I'm unprepared here. I'm not sure who has and hasn't been tagged, so I will have a look at Pat's original tag video, because I know she tagged a lot of folks. So I will check who has and hasn't been tagged, and I will drop a couple of names in the description as a tag. But also, if you haven't already been tagged and you do fancy the look of this one, then consider yourselves tagged. So that will do from me today then. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, do drop your thoughts in the comments below. It's always lovely to hear from you. I will be back on Friday with more bookish ramblings of some sort, so I do hope you'll join me for that then. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.